discussion, a forum of the, about issues, about real issues in District 63. Okay, so Eric, your minute to introduce yourself and say who you are and why you're running for office.
Thank you, Anelia. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you for hosting this event. I am Eric Stromberg. I am a substitute teacher. I've been a professional educator all my life. I am a native Iowan. I've lived in the Bremer County for the last 9 years. I think that this is an absolutely wonderful place. I think Iowa is the best place to raise our children. That's why my wife and I decided to move back to Iowa after living in Indiana for 12 years. I care very much about the direction of our state, about fully financing our schools, about fixing this disastrous Medicaid privatization, about water quality, about sentencing reform, a number of other progressive Democratic priorities. And so I welcome the opportunity to have this discussion with Anelia and hear Teresa's point of view, and I think that it'll be a very enlightening evening.
Okay, Teresa?
I'm Teresa Meyer, and I am a registered nurse of 27 years, a board of trustee at Hawkeye Community College. I have lived in Bremer County for over 40 years, and I have lived in Waverly for 23 years, and I'm also a union member, ASME Local 2998. I am a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and I ran on House District 63 in 2014. And the reason why I'm running is because our state government is failing to protect and serve the people of Iowa. And the education is failing to be funded at all levels. And then our health care for the most vulnerable has been put into a disaster. And our administration appears to be showing no restraint in taking us further down that road. And we need a strong advocate for House District 63, and I believe I can do that. And I have been fighting for House District 63 for a long time. Thank you so much.
Okay, just perfect timing. Now that you've made your initial statements, everybody can relax. We know you guys, why you're here, both excellent candidates. Let's just talk a little bit about your philosophy of service. I think where the newspaper, where I can help in my mind as a journalist is perhaps in showing the audience here and those of you watching us who you are as a person, because a lot of politicians tend to make promises that they don't deliver on later on. So I think the best way we can serve the public is have you show who you are as a person and where you stand, politically and philosophically. So talk to me a little bit about your philosophy of service. I'll go to Teresa first.
My service as a registered nurse.
I meant more like public service.
Public service.
And how would you practice it as a legislator? Would you move the, yeah, there you go.
One of the great experiences is that in 2011, I ran for Hawkeye Community College. I am an elected official since that time, and it has been very important. It was actually, it's a great privilege to be a board of trustee for Hawkeye Community College. I graduated at Hawkeye. I have been a registered nurse for 27 years, and it brought me a living wage. I have been able to work at Allen Hospital for 18 years in the intensive care unit, and I was also a traveling ICU nurse. I worked at Tufts New England Medical Center in Boston, and I worked at Emmanuel Medical Center in Omaha, all on an associate degree. It's quality, affordable education. That degree is versatile and transferable, and I'm very, very proud to be an elected official for Hawkeye Community College. And that's been a great experience for me and a kind of a launching point for my political career.
Okay. Eric, again, what's your philosophy of service and how would you practice it as a legislator?
Well, I think that one thing that has guided me in my work as an educator, as a professional lay minister in the Catholic Church here in town for almost a decade, is the notion of servant leadership. And it's the idea that your calling, your vocation, the motivating ethic of your life it's not about yourself, it's about others. And that was something that was, cultivated with me, from very younger age, all the way on through high school and college and graduate school, and then ultimately moving here to Waverly. And I think that when you practice that ethic of servant leadership, you open yourselves up to other viewpoints, adopting the point of view of the other, trying to understand things from many different angles, especially some of the complex issues that we have to deal with in political life. And so I think that in my time as a college professor, as a minister, as a substitute teacher all over this district, or all over in all the school districts in Bremer County pretty much, I would say that the ability to listen, to adopt the point of view of the other, to not be cynical about motivations, those are the kinds of things that I would strongly incorporate into my leadership style.
Okay, so my next question has two parts to it. So I will come to you first, Eric. Who do you think you represent in office? Do you represent yourself? Do you represent the constituents who are Democrats? Or do you think you represent all the people in District 63? And so that's the first part of the question. What do you think about this? And then the second part is, how would you approach that part of your responsibility, representation? How would you represent? And who?
Well, it's a very good question. My own philosophy on this is, obviously we represent everybody in House District 63. That's the northern part of Black Hawk County and all of Bremer County. And so those constituents need to have access to their legislator. They need somebody who is responsive. They need somebody who will take the time to listen. And so, yes, I will serve with a passion and great dedication all of the people in our district, Democrat, Republican, Independent, whoever they are. We also have to bear in mind that there are other stakeholders in this race besides people that live in Bremer County. The decisions that we make in Des Moines impact everyone all over the state. So in some sense, of course, we're serving all of the people of Iowa, all 3 million people, and that's a great responsibility. It's one that I take seriously.
Teresa?
Okay. Our current representative campaigned on the issue that she supported businesses, education, farmers, and all of the above. But she has underrepresented this district, and that's why I'm running, because we need to represent everybody in this district, not just a few select interest groups. And so as a registered nurse, I take care of everybody, the rich, the poor, people that can't even afford their health care. And so I'm an advocate for all, and that's why I'm running.
Okay. It will be somewhat easier to represent people that you agree with, I would imagine. How would you represent people that you disagree with? Politically and in other ways?
Well, I think that...
You can ask me.
Or you're going to...
I'm starting with him.
Okay, I did. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a great question. I think that, once again, I mean, I don't mean to sound weaselly and stuff, but it comes to, it
it's really
depends, it
important.
depends on, it's certainly, it's going to be something that depends on the issue. But in any case, and in every case, it's understanding the opposite point of view And again, not being cynical about motivations, but trying our best as I can to understand what's going on. And I think that what I always try to do is first find out what everybody has in common, what everybody agrees on, so we can start from some kind of common basis.
Okay.
And once we've established that, once you establish that common basis, then you build up goodwill. And that's what needs to happen in the state legislature. It needs to happen in national politics. People want to see parties cooperate. They don't want to see the partisanship. As a partisan Democrat, and I'm hoping that this is Democrats that we're all speaking to, because that's who's going to vote in the primary, I would say that it's Democrats who time and time again have tried to bargain in good faith at the state level, at the national level. And what you need is a good faith partner on the other side. And with the kind of obstructionism that we're seeing, it's very hard to break through with that, but it's one of the things that I would try to do as your state legislator.
Okay, Teresa.
Hold on, Anelia. I'm getting, video's been paused because it's a poor connection in here.
It doesn't matter. We'll just continue anyway because it's being live cast. In addition to it being live cast on Facebook, this program is also being broadcast on TV here in Waverly as well. So, Teresa, the same question to you. How would you represent people you disagree with?
One of the best qualities of a registered nurse is being an active listener, to listen, to gather information, and then to try and find common ground. That's the most important thing, to allow people to ventilate. People today are very frustrated with their government, and they feel that their government, they have no voice in their government. And just having them to ventilate their problems, and then you can understand where they're coming from, and then we can find common ground and find solutions to these problems. And I still feel that there's always a solution to every problem, and bringing people to the table, more people to the table, and bringing their voices together is a very positive way of finding solutions. And it's not always what I think. I think it's what the constituency feels, and how they feel about these issues is the most important thing.
Okay, why don't you name maybe 3 issues that you think, I'll start with you, Teresa, 3 issues that you think are extremely important to you that you'll champion if you were to get the nod.
The most important things that I feel is that everybody has a God-given right to make a decent living, a living wage, so they can raise their children, and so they can educate them for the 21st century, and so they're not drowning in student debt. And everybody has a right to quality, affordable, accessible health care, especially for the veterans, and especially for the parents that are suffering with their children with these debilitating illnesses. And I do not know why medical marijuana is not a medicine in Iowa. If you know and feel the suffering of these parents, then you can be an advocate for them and help them find some avenue so their loved ones would not have to suffer. And I do support collective bargaining rights in this state. Everybody has a God-given right to organize and organize a union. And I have been very, very active in that over the course of years. I've helped organize nurses across the United States in different states, and all for safe staffing and whistleblower protection. So I'm very, very proud of these issues, and I'm going to stand by them and just go from there.
So your
see
top,
what happens.
So just to reiterate, your top 3 priorities would be collective bargaining, medical marijuana, healthcare,
Have health care and a God-given right to
Decent
have a
living.
job that brings a living wage so people can raise their families and educate their children and prepare them for the 21st century.
okay, Eric, what would be your top 3 priorities? Teresa had 4, so you can give
I'm
4.
sorry.
That's okay, you can have 4.
Got
all
carried
right.
away.
That's all right. They're going to be similar. I have a different kind of emphasis on how I approach some of these things. My absolute top 2 campaign priorities are repealing Governor Branstad's Medicaid privatization, and second, finally, fully funding our schools with state supplemental aid. The first, I talk with healthcare providers all over the district, down in Des Moines, all over the state, and the Medicaid privatization is a complete disaster already. We don't have hard data because it just started on April 1st as it was rammed through, but the basic outline of the medical or the Medicaid privatization basically goes like this. The old program, Title 19 Medicaid, administered by the state of Iowa, it's the single largest part of the state of Iowa's budget. The state of Iowa has roughly a $7.58 billion budget, so let's say Medicaid Title 19 runs about $3.5 billion, $4 billion. The state administered that program with a 2% overhead. For whatever problems or inefficiencies or things that were wrong with the current system, it didn't need to be completely overhauled and radically transformed the way Governor Branstad did. He's now since turned over the administration of Medicaid Title 19 to 3 private MCOs, which are essentially insurance companies. These insurance companies are guaranteed 15% administrative fee, all of this without legislative oversight. 15% of $4 billion is $600 million. It's $600 million it's not going to provide for our vulnerable families, for our elderly, for our people with disabilities. And so it just doesn't make sense. The arithmetic isn't there. Second, as far as fully financing our schools, the last 6 years in the state of Iowa, state supplemental aid has been at the lowest ever for any 6-year stretch in the history of Iowa. Iowa has a proud tradition of public education. Iowa had started public schools before it was a state. We'd financed public schools during the Iowa Territory. And of course, if we just ask the audience or anybody, what's on the Iowa quarter? We've got a schoolhouse that says excellence in education. Well, if we're not going to back that up, we might as well have the U.S. mint new quarters and go with something else, because we're certainly failing our schools. We're failing all of our districts. As a substitute teacher, like I said, I've worked in Janesville, I've worked in WSR, I've worked in Denver. I've talked to administrators in Tripola and all of the schools that I worked in. Our school boards and our administrators are faced with cutting programs. My child, right now, my oldest, is in 9th grade. He comes back and he's already says that there's shop classes that are being cut, other positions that are being eliminated. These are things that are worthwhile. They're worth paying for. They have value. They help our families. They help our communities. And we are just utterly failing. So that's my second priority. The third priority, I think, would have to be raising the minimum wage. Whatever level we establish that, I'm open to I'm open to, argument as far as that goes. But it has to be higher than what it was in the 1970s, which is where, in real dollars, we have, we've really fallen behind. The purchasing power of the minimum wage, it does not help our families. It does not help people who are struggling. And if that is like $12 an hour, which would be something like Mrs. Clinton proposes in her campaign, or something like $15 an hour, that is something that is worth exploring and worth fighting for. Johnson County, Lynn County, and I think Polk County are already working on raising the minimum wage. those three areas, they're urban counties. They have 1/3 of the population of the state of Iowa already. The state is ready for this. It's been decades since this has been addressed.
You can
And
have a
so
fourth priority, Eric, if you'd like. You can do a
I
fourth
think
one.
I'll just stop there.
So
We
the
only
three?
we only had, I mean, there's, half a dozen other things that
Sure.
are at crisis proportions that we need to take on, so.
Okay, so tell me, what dissatisfies you the most about the current representation? Currently, we have a Republican in this job. What do you find most dissatisfying about it?
Is it my turn first? Do we take turns?
Yeah, sure.
Going first? Okay.
Yes, we
Thank
do.
you. Like I said, I've been a professional educator, and Representative Salmon is not a person that I've never met her personally, so I can't speak to anything about her character or what that. But she does sit on the Education Committee in the Iowa House of Representatives. And her caucus leadership put her in that position because she said that she had a background in education. This background in education involved homeschooling her kids. I have nothing against homeschooling. I'm a parochial school kid. I graduated from Catholic school in Fort Dodge, Iowa. We worked, my brothers and sister, we detasseled corn each summer to pay for our tuition. Our family still paid taxes. We knew we had to support public schools, but we worked hard to pay our own tuition, and we didn't need any breaks like that. But Representative Salmon has been on the Education Committee, and when I've talked to our principals and our superintendents, she just does not understand the problems that face our districts, that face our campuses, and I think that there is a great, tremendous frustration on their part. One other thing about that, which is almost by itself enough to get me into the race, is that Representative Salmon did try, I think it might have been last session, I don't know if it was just this last session or the one before, to try to influence the science standards in our science curriculum, to bring about evolution, to teach the controversy. And ladies and gentlemen, I speak as somebody who has had a career in higher education, who has been around scientists, and this is not science. I am a person of faith and conviction, but there's no place for that in our science classrooms, and we would severely do incalculable damage to our students, to our reputation, to our communities, if that was something that we allowed here in Iowa. And that's something that I would fight for. That's something that I want to beat Sandy for, just for that. Let alone, and then throw in all the other stuff, and then, yeah, I'm really motivated to beat her.
Okay. What about you, Teresa? What are you most dissatisfied with the current representation?
Well, with Governor Branstad, it is a state law that we need to budget, come up with a school budget within 30 days after session starts. And he continues to break the law. And as far as Sandy Salmon goes, she sees no value in the public educational system. 28% of all legislators are homeschoolers, and they outnumber public school teachers, and they control the budget for the children's public school. So we need to replace those who have a radical different thinking view on education and replace them like people like myself who worked very, very hard to make sure educational opportunities for all children at all levels. So Sandy Salmon votes in big corporate tax giveaways while there's no money to fund the schools or for our mental health system. So I think she's made enough mistakes, she needs to be removed. And so that's just a little bit about what I'm unhappy with this Republican leadership, so.
Sure. What would you be, in your mind, what would be your biggest challenge if you were to face off with Sandy Salmon in November? Let's just say the
Oh, you-
voters
Oh,
picked
you
you.
mean for her to
It-
come out and speak?
What do you
front
think
of
would
the
be,
public, or what?
I'm not sure, what do you think would be your biggest challenge if you're face-to-face, you know, in November,
Oh, trying to win a campaign?
trying to win, yeah?
Well, I think.
Your challenge, not hers, your challenge.
Is trying to get the voter to vote, to
Okay.
get them to the booth. Because in 2014, that was the most worst year in the United States for people to come out to vote. John F. Kennedy, 63% of the people turned out. Barack Obama, 53% of the people turned out. Last year, it was, what, 37%? It was really bad.
I'm not sure what the percent is,
It
but
was really bad. And so people are disenchanted with their government. They feel that they don't have a voice in their government. And so I think this election's going to turn everything around, especially from the top of the ticket all the way down. And Bernie Sanders, I think, is going to be a very good asset in trying to get people motivated to get out to vote, especially the youth. We need to get the youth to the booth.
okay.
So-
Eric, what do you think if you were to be facing off with Sandy Salmon? What do you think will be your biggest challenge?
That's a that's a good question.
They all sound
I
like
think
good questions.
They're all, they all are good questions. I turn out, like Teresa said, that's absolutely vital. I just right now struggling, to turn out our supporters in the primary. You would think that this is the easiest thing in the world. Just mail in a ballot. Just come by the courthouse. It takes 5 minutes. Well, as of 3:30 today, we'd had little less than 300 ballot requests for all of Bremer County, at least. I don't have the Blackhawk figures. And again, like, these are 4 contested elections. Teresa and I are in a contest. There's a contest for U.S. Senate and for Iowa House of Representatives. And so it's a hard climb. I mean, and that's just one of the difficulties with the electoral system. Specifically with Sandy, with Representative Salmon, rather, I'm sorry. To be honest, I actually don't know what the biggest challenge would be in facing her. I welcome whatever that challenge is, but I don't have a really great answer for you. I wish I could.
Okay, and that's okay. A lot of things are moving in the evolving stage. Yes, please do, please do.
I just want to let everybody know about the landscape of our district. We have 5,000 Republicans, we have 5,000 Democrats, and the independent voter outnumbers us 2-1. And studies show that the independent voter doesn't come out to vote. So this district has a lot of work. We need boots on the ground, getting people motivated to get people to vote.
Okay, which leads me to my next question, the perfect segue. How far have you come with your campaign, and what exactly are you doing to get people motivated? Have you been door knocking, calling people? Where are you in your campaign
I've been
development?
actively campaigning since the last election. I door knock. That's the most effective way of face-to-face contact. That is such a beautiful moment. Then you can talk to the people and they can tell you what your issues are. So door knocking. I've been in the rural area. Our district is mostly rural, and they have issues too, not just Waverly. So I go out, I drive all over this district, I talk to everybody.
How many doors do you think you've knocked on?
I knock on at
Approximately.
least 60 doors a day.
60 doors a day, that's
Yes.
impressive.
And I work full-time. So
So do you do it early in the morning or later at night?
whatever time is there for me to do that, I have been doing this for years. I have been campaigning for Bruce Braley, Liz Mathis, Anessa. I have door knocked. Everybody knows me. And when Bill Heckroth was running for Senate, I drove Butler County, Fayette County, Bremer County, and door knocked for that man. and he was an excellent candidate. And the only reason why he could not get elected is because the NRA dropped in $40,000 into not Sandy Salmon's, but Bill Dix's campaign, and bought up some votes, and he could not win.
Let's just hear what Eric has to say about this. How far along are you in your campaign? What do you do to motivate and energize and mobilize people?
I feel very good about our campaign. I think that we have a high visibility out there in the district. You know, obviously we have, I like to think that our signs are everywhere, that people are seeing my name. I am a newcomer, of course, so I do have that to overcome, and Teresa has been out there in the field, and for sure, there's no contest. She's spoken to a lot more people, so I'm playing a game of catch-up.
How many doors do you think you've knocked on?
Since the weather got nice, it was cold. It was cold for a long time. I didn't want to bother people then, so it was mostly phone calls. But if I had to guess, I don't know. Can I rely on my helpers out there? Like, how many doors have we been hitting the last week, and then we can average that out?
But fairly recently.
Right. Yeah.
Sure.
Fairly recently. Like, I mean, we didn't gear this up until at least until the weather got. So I mean, not.
No, there's no 60 doors a day.
Right, yeah. I mean, not 10,000 doors or
Okay,
not
very well.
5,000 doors. Just
Okay.
but as far as getting people excited and energetic or energized about the campaign, I mean, I think that we're doing a great job. I have great get out the vote captains in our schools in WSR and in Denver, where I've been a teacher and I've got to know these kids, these young kids as they're graduating. I have wonderful get out the vote captains working on Wartburg. And so I'm trying to reach the youth where they're at. We think we have a dynamic social media campaign. And so, yeah, I think that there's a good energy around our campaign. I've been pleased with the positive reception that we've had so far. And we are playing a little bit of catch-up, but that's what, you know, we feel good where we're at.
Okay, so looking at the questions and the conversations that happen at the doorstep, in some people's homes and in the yard, what's the number one issue that you hear from constituents? Just one issue. I don't want you to elaborate on it, but just what are people most concerned about? Are they most concerned about taxes? Do they say, Eric, I think, you know, my biggest concern is education, or marijuana, or Planned Parenthood? You know, what do you hear?
I don't mean to reiterate, you know, kind of my campaign priorities, but
What's
it
the number
is. It's
one issue?
education.
Education. Okay.
I
Teresa,
would
what do you
say.
hear the most? 60 doors a day? What's the number one priority that voters have?
It would be education. There are children drowning in student debt, where they graduate from college and there's no job, so they have to figure out how to find a job or go back to school and drowned in some more debt. Now, students don't mind being educated in Iowa, but they cannot find a job once they graduate. Number two, people are being taxed out of their homes. The elderly people are on fixed incomes. And if we keep raising these taxes, and if people aren't going to be paying their fair share, meaning corporate taxes, they're going to tax the little guy right out of their houses. Now, when my husband and I retire, I'm not going to be able to afford to live in Waverly. And my husband will have a pension. And we still won't be able to live in Waverly. Our taxes will be too high. So I can relate to that to some of the elderly people.
There is a question from the audience that I would like you to take, Eric.
That's what I was wondering if there were questions. Thank you very much. I would like to know what the candidates' positions are on the use of public funds for family planning.
And can I get your name first, sir? And where you're
David
from?
David Frederick, Waverly.
Okay.
Okay. Public funding, right?
Use of public funding for family planning.
For family planning measures.
I think that it's kind of no secret now that I would consider myself a pro-life Catholic, but I am 100% behind whatever we have. I have no problem with funding for contraception, for education, for these things. Planned Parenthood, 98% of what they provide are women's health services. A lot of the times, they're the only place in some of our areas where women can turn to for reproductive health. Like those are the kinds of services that I would strongly be inclined to protect.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess that sums
Yeah,
up.
that's a good answer. What about you, Teresa?
I would never deny a woman the right to choose. Why don't you guys walk in her shoes? Every situation's different. And I think it's a breach of HIPAA. It's a breach in the doctor-patient privilege. And we have no business discussing these social issues at the governmental level. It's a waste of taxpayers' time and money. And
Okay.
that's about how I feel
Okay.
about the subject.
My next question is, what sets you apart from your opponent?
I think
What makes you different? Why should people prefer you versus Eric?
I think it's that the pro-life versus pro-choice. Otherwise, it's, we're preaching to the choir, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much agree on everything other than
Yeah.
that.
So,
So-
we
so-
do agree we want to get Sandy Salmon out of there.
Yes.
For God's sake. But that's the difference between Eric and I. He is very passionate about pro-life, and I'm very passionate about pro-choice. And I have no right judging anybody that has to come to making these decisions. And the Republicans seem to think this is an epidemic. It is not an epidemic where people are lined up to have abortions. That's not true. But these social issues do not need to be discussed at the governmental level. It's a waste of taxpayers' time and money, and I will not entertain those ideas.
Okay, Eric, is that the only difference between the two of you, that she defines herself as pro-life and you define yourself as,
Vice versa.
I'm sorry.
Right, yeah, yeah.
I'm
Don't
sorry.
worry, I understand what you meant.
My bad, yes.
Probably on your most policy matters, yeah. Most other things, there won't be much daylight between a position that I would take and what Teresa would take. What I would say about this is, Sandy Salmon, we obviously, this isn't the forum to address the morality of pro-choice, pro-life positions. I would only like to take the time just to address the politics of the situation, just for a moment. You know, these are very heated issues, and they're hot button issues, and they fire people up. But what I would like voters to consider as they're casting a ballot is Sandy is without a doubt, the most anti-abortion candidate or the most anti-abortion member of the Iowa House of Representatives. And Sandy, it was a Republican wave 2 years ago, but Sandy did beat Teresa by 2,000 votes. I don't think that this is an issue that in this district that leans conservative is going to move more voters into our column. I do think that, like I said before, when we talk about, I always look for common ground. And so where are we going to find common ground? And I think that if we agree on, say, doing what we can as a society, as a government, to reduce the number of abortions. For example, when Bill Clinton was president, his mantra had been, we should keep abortion safe, legal, and rare. And it was. If you look at the statistics, go to the Centers for Disease Control website, you can see they kept track of abortion surveillance data. It starts in 1973, goes all the way up. The number of abortions goes up, all the way to 1993, all the way up through Carter, Reagan, Bush 1. When Clinton is president, the number of abortions, they peak at 1.3 million in 1992 or 1993. when Bill Clinton is president, he ushers in changes in policy, the numbers go down
Can we just
every year
focus
of
on you,
his.
Eric, rather than Bill Clinton?
All right.
He's far away from here.
Sorry. Sometimes I get off
Yeah,
track.
Yeah, I only have 3 minutes left, and I understood you to be saying that even though you may be personally against abortions, that as a policy matter, you would not vote your conscience in that area. Am I misunderstanding?
Well, you'd have to give me a hypothetical scenario about, I mean, legalized abortion is settled law throughout the country. It has been for 40 years. States have broad discretion in regulating abortion up through the first trimester or the first half of pregnancy. Or excuse me, after that, I'm sorry, after the first half. And so you'll see varying state laws with respect to this. So some states have abortion all the way up to 40 weeks. Some states only have it at 20 weeks, whatever it is. I think that,
What would you do?
what would I do with,
What would you do? Would you be like a Sandy Salmon in pants or what would you?
she wears
or would-
pants sometimes, doesn't
I
she?
know, I know. But I
Okay.
meant more a male version of her on that one issue, or would you not?
What I would say about,
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Like, is it about parental notification? Is it about,
I know we have a big issue and a
right,
very
it's like
long time.
probably the main regulation in that Iowa regulates very loosely, and if you have a minor child, then you need an adult parent to sign on with that. I mean, I think that's sensible. It's something that if it was, tried to take away, well, I mean, I would think of my daughter, I would want to be there for her, and so I think that would be, that's one thing. It just depends on whatever, I mean, these are complex issues, and I wish that I could give you an answer in 30 seconds, not to be weaselly about it.
Yeah, I know they're not 30-second answer issues, but for the purposes of the discussion here, I will give you, we only have 2 minutes left, I'll give you 1 minute each to wrap it up and tell us why people should vote for you. Teresa, why should people vote for you?
Well,
You lost last time, so people are thinking, oh my God, what is going
Well-
to happen this time?
the reason why I lost the election, people didn't show up to vote, and that was across the country. People are disenchanted with their government. They feel that they don't have a voice, and especially with who's sitting in our district right now. It was in the Waterloo Courier earlier this year what her top priorities were: the religious right and abortion. Now, that doesn't pay the bills. People want a job that brings a living wage. We have a right to raise our children and to educate them and prepare them for the 21st century. Those are basic rights as an American. And to deny those rights is very, very cruel. And we have people suffering from cancer and debilitating illnesses. And this state doesn't even recognize that marijuana is a medicine. It really, really gets me charged up. I'm a registered nurse. I take care of everybody. Everybody has a right in this country to have quality, affordable health care, especially for our veterans. And I've been a board of trustee, too.
Okay, Teresa? Eric? Why should people vote Stromberg?
Well, I think we've just kind of conceded, we've both stipulated that we stand pretty close together on 95% of boilerplate Democratic priorities. And I think that just when you asked us our philosophies from the beginning of this discussion about looking for common ground, about reaching out to the other side, about trying to bargain in good faith, about listening, about communicating, these are the things that we need to bring to the state legislator. And that's something that I pride myself on. It's something that I think that we desperately need. And as passionate, I feel as passionate as Teresa does about so many of these things. There's also a time to dial down the passion. There's a time for cooler heads to prevail. There's a time for being as rational as we can be for finding where we can compromise, for standing strong when we need to stand by our values. And ultimately, I think that's the kind of leadership that I want to bring to the Iowa House of Representatives.
Okay, thank you so much to both of the candidates for coming and having this nice conversation here with us. Thank you for watching, the live audience here. It was very refreshing to see so many faces and to see the reaction of a live audience. It's just incredible for me as a journalist, and thank you for those of you who are watching us online and on TV. Join us next time. For the Waverly newspapers, I'm Anelia K. Dimitrova, the newspaper's editor. Good night.